Okay guys, so you have been asking me for forever to launch a YouTube channel and to post more videos that are actual tutorials of all of the things that I do out in the garden and inside of the home. And so I finally, after years of putting it off, have decided to launch it. And I guess you could say kick it off with an episode on how to make a beautiful fresh fall arrangement. One of the biggest questions that I get when I am posting on my socials about my flowers or my arranging is, what do you use and how do you make your arrangement look like that? I've been doing floral design for about 12 years now. It is really what got me into gardening in the first place, or growing flowers. It's really where my love of flowers began. So I know all the tricks of the trade. Today we're going to be making a large scale fresh flower arrangement. Say fresh, but you're going to keep in mind that a lot of the flowers that you're going to see me using are at least semi-dry at this point. I use them in everything from vase arrangements to garlands to wreaths to certain flowers, especially my hydrangeas, I'll use as picks and put them in my Christmas trees. You will see these dried flowers all over my house all the time, but especially around the holidays. So I'm going to talk about not just how I go about making the arrangement, but also the flowers that I'm going to be using to make the arrangement. To start, I have my vessel right here, and I do have it filled with water. Again, even though a lot of these are already dried out and honestly don't even really need to be put in water, I do have water in here because I do have some fresher flowers that will require water, like some cosmos, some burgundy cosmos, and dahlias, which are absolutely beautiful, and I really want to incorporate because of that bold pop of color. So we do have the water in here. I try to not use flower foam if I don't have to. I do prefer chicken wire as an alternative, and you can buy this obviously on like a larger scale or a larger roll at like Lowe's or Home Depot, or any type of hardware store, but I buy this smaller one, and I think I got this one at Hobby Lobby, but they will sell something like this in any craft store. They should, in the floral department. And so what I do is I cut little strips of it and roll it up, and then I stick it in the vessel. I will do two side by side because this is a larger vessel with a wider mouth. If you get your wire in there and you feel like it's not secure, you can use a floral tape and just tape over the top of the vessel to keep the wire down and to keep it from pulling out. But I don't think I'm going to need to do that once I get these. And the point of this is to be able to hold my stems. So I like a more organic form in my arrangement, which means stems kind of coming out at all different directions. And you can't do that without something holding those stems into place, because obviously if you have a vase like this, right, straight up and down, it's like if you're sticking the stem in the water, it's just going to go one direction. It can only go up or down. Now you can fill it out really well, but regardless of how much you fill it, you're not going to be able to place any stem at an angle or sideways. So I don't want just my stems to come up and down. I want them to come out all over the place. And so this chicken wire holds the stems that I'm going to put in at, you know, maybe an angle or wanting to come out to the side, and allows me to achieve that more kind of organic, free-flowing form that I'm looking for. So I have my chicken wire in here, and I do feel like it's secure enough. I don't think I'm gonna have to tape it. And the nice thing about the wire too is obviously it's bendy, so you can kind of play around with it to get it to you know, fill out the area and hold enough to the point where you shouldn't need to use tape. Okay, so for me, when I'm making any type of floral arrangement, it's really, really important to have a really good balance of a few different things. And I carry this throughout like everything in the home and in the garden. So whether I'm talking about a floral arrangement, whether I'm talking about garden design layout, whether I'm talking about designing or decorating an interior space, the same kind of rules always going to apply. For me, it's all about balance. So I want a good variation in color. I want a good variation in textural variety. And I'm going to want, in this particular instance, a good variation in the form of the stem. So for example, some of my stems are very woody and hard and upright. Some of my stems, again, like my cosmos, something like this, that's gonna have a little bendiness to it. That's really, really important for me. And so again, balance in color, balance in textural variety, balance in just the overall form of the flower or the stem. For me, the goal is to always arrange my flowers in such a way that all of the blooms stand out. And each kind of has their moment. And so the really, for me, only way to achieve that is to make sure that I do have that nice balance, that I have some variety in texture, that I have some variety in color. Definitely variety in height, as you'll watch me as I'm placing my stems. If you are taking flowers of, you know, all the same or very similar color, all the same texture, and all of the same height, or you're just cutting those stems all the same height and sticking them in the vase, they're just gonna all kind of mush and blend together, and you're not going to be able to truly appreciate each of the individual blooms and what they have to offer. So I typically like to start with my base, and for my base, I like to use, I guess you could call it like a filler flower, but I like to use something that's going to be kind of either like a wide leaf or something that's a larger, fluffier head of a flower. I don't want to say that it plays a supporting role in the arrangement, because I think every flower in my arrangements serve a very beautiful purpose. But I guess if you had to pick one as the supporting role, I'm going to go ahead and say that that filler base is going to be it. For this particular arrangement, I'm going to be using Joe Pye weed to do that. Joe Pye weed is one of my favorite perennials. It is a beautiful kind of burgundy red color. There are several different varieties, so the color will vary a little bit between the different varieties, but you'll see the main difference in the height of the plant. This is a perennial that the pollinators love, and it blooms like mid to end summer and then all through the fall. So you will always see a lot of this in my garden, and I love, like, this is the perfect flower to create your base with. This is not a flower that I am going to have higher up in my arrangement. This is solely going to be utilized in this arrangement to just kind of fill the lower void of the arrangement. So I'm going to start with my Joe Pye weed, and I'm just going to kind of work my way around the base of the plant. This also makes for a wonderful dried flower. I used this last year in all of my dried arrangements. I used it I did a dried wreath making workshop at the old house, and I used this to make the wreaths. It's just a really great dried flower. The color again is beautiful, but also this like fuzzy kind of texture is just super fun. And again, perfect for forming the base of this arrangement. So I'm going to fill this out. This is a really, really easy perennial to grow also. It is very similar to a milkweed. I'm almost positive it's in the same family. And I believe also that it is a native perennial. And so again, the pollinators go crazy for it. The butterflies love it. The bees love it. So there's a lot of action on the Joe Pye weed all throughout the season. The other thing I always try to tell people is when you're making any arrangement, it's never like a set it and forget it type thing. Like it can't be, taken out and rearranged and moved around. I'm plucking stems and moving them around and changing things around all the time as I go. So I always, when I'm making an arrangement, will kind of go in with a general but like loose idea of the look that I want to achieve. But I just try to let my mind and my hands just start to do the work, and then I will just play around as I go. So I may go back in again towards the end of the arranging and fill in a little bit more if I feel like I need it. But I do feel like for now, this is a really good base. I've got my base. The next thing I am going to come in with are the blooms that will kind of sit a little bit more, I guess you could say, like mid-tier or middle of the road in the arrangement. So for that, I am going to be using a few different things, but for sure my hydrangeas, and I do have a couple of different varieties here, but they are all in the panicle family of hydrangea. I talk about panicle hydrangeas all the time. They are definitely my favorite to grow for several different reasons. I think they're easier to grow than a lot of the other varieties, but I also love the shape of the flower. I like the more cone-shaped bloom as opposed to the round, smooth ones. And I also love that they all start like a whitish green, and as they progress throughout the season, they fade into a deep kind of magenta berry color, and they hold that color until you cut them. But you don't want to wait too late into the season to cut them, because obviously once the plant starts dying, once it gets really cold, they will obviously turn brown because the whole plant dies. But like this is a dried out bloom. I could stick this in a vase and it doesn't have to even have water in it, and this is it. This is how it's going to kind of stay. So you can kind of see how I am working around the arrangement and placing these in. This particular variety is called Pinky Winky, I think. And it's a very lacy one. So you'll only see a couple scattered blooms and a lot of the lace, which I really, really love. Then I'm gonna kind of come in with another variety of panicle. So this is Little Lime Punch. This is another one of my favorites. It's a beautiful shrub in the garden. It's very easy to care for. It's tidier. It won't get too big. They will mature to be anywhere between 3 and 5 feet, obviously depending on, you know, the location that you have the shrub in. I typically see that the more sunlight the panicles get, the bigger they grow, but they will do pretty well in partial shade also. I just kind of keep spinning and adding as I feel is necessary. I don't have a set recipe. I just go until I think it looks good, and I move things around until I think it looks good. And it's never, again, like I said, it's never too late to go back and add more things in or take them away. That's how I do everything. Again, from designing rooms or decorating rooms to building out my gardens to making floral arrangements. I just like to feel it out as I go, kind of. So the next thing I'm going to start plugging in, and I love these. So these are the seed. This is a dried, I guess, a seed pod of Veronicastrum. Veronicastrum is another one of my favorite perennials that I love to grow in my garden. It has these beautiful, like lavender, lilac-y, purple, spiky kind of blooms on them. And they bloom from late spring throughout the summer. But I don't cut them down because I love how these look even after they're done blooming. And so this is what these will look like out in the garden on the bush for the remainder of the season until I cut them and bring them in to use them like this. I love the texture that these are adding. I think they're really fun. Got to add, so I wanted to plug some of these hydrangeas in too. This is a newer to me variety that I just started growing this year and I loved it. It's called pufferfish. And again, it's another panicle variety of hydrangea. But this one doesn't, it turns a little bit of pink, but it stays primarily like a whitish green. And it is a very lacy bloom, and the whole entire bush is covered in blooms. You see very, very, very little foliage on this particular variety, which I love. So I'm gonna plug a couple of these in. I forgot I had those over there. You're gonna notice that my hydrangea stems are not very long. And I would have loved to cut some longer ones, but honestly for me, it's not worth the damage that it does to the bush, because if you cut your hydrangeas too low or too short, the panicles, you'll still get blooms the next year no matter what. They bloom on new wood. So it doesn't matter where you cut them. It's not gonna mess up the bloom for the following season, but it will bloom on like a weaker, like kind of like finicky, like wobbly stem. And then that's when you see the bushes where the hydrangeas kind of like flop over, and we don't want that. So I do try to avoid, I love cutting my hydrangeas and bringing them in to use them for the fall and the winter, but I do try to avoid cutting them too low because I don't want my my shrubs the following year to suffer. Okay, here we go. More Veronicastrum pods. I just love those. I think they are so fun. And again, I'll always try to put them in at kind of different heights. And you never want to set the same stem, like something like this, too close to one another. So I do try to kind of space them out a little bit. I maybe do one more, and then I'm going to come in and I have some fountain grass that I want to plug in next. Now I have some feather grass. Again, super fun. I love these plumes, great textural variety, and has a very fall feel to it. So for me, this is something perfect to stick into an arrangement like this. And so I'm just going to kind of, again, just keep kind of rotating my arrangement and spreading them out and popping them in there. So far, I feel like this is going really well. One of the keys too, and I tell people this, and I know, I guess it's easier said than done for me because I've been doing this for so long, but like for me, truly, like one of the biggest roadblocks that I see people deal with, not just with arranging, but like any sort of design, or, you know, having to make a decision when it comes to garden design, floral design, interior design, is they get so caught up in like worrying if they're doing it right, that the focus isn't on the art of creating a beautiful arrangement. The focus is on not screwing it up. And please believe me when I tell you, you can't screw it up. You can't screw this up. If you don't like what you did, you pluck the stem out and you move it around and you switch it up, or you can pull all the stems out and do it all over. You cannot screw this up. So the key is to like really just try to get that like out of your head and have fun with it. And I think that that's when the best work, when it comes to something, you know, artistic, again, like design, that's when you kind of see your best product. Now I am going in, I'm just moving right along as I'm talking, because again, this is just how I do. I'll start seeing different stems as I go. I'm like, oh, now I want to plug those in. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm done with the Veronicastrum or that I'm done with the fountain grass, but I just am ready to kind of add a few new elements in there. And I might circle back around to those other varieties once I'm done. But right now what I'm doing is I'm going in with some dried allium. I love allium. You will see it in obnoxious amounts all throughout my garden. There are so many different varieties. It is a pollinator magnet. The bees especially love it, but the butterflies love it too. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, it's an ornamental onion. It's a chive. But so easy to grow. You have to do literally nothing to it. You put it in the ground and that's it. And I just love it. I'd put it honestly in top 3 favorite perennials that I grow in my garden. And I have probably about 10 different varieties of it all throughout the garden. And I love this as a dried flower because, again, I love that globular shape to it. I think it adds such a fun element to an arrangement. And also what I will do for like holiday arrangements is I'll take a little bit of gold spray paint or like rose gold or something, and I'll just kind of spray the head of it because these do turn just brown. They're not going to hold any of that purple color. But for me, I love the shape of this so much that I don't care that it's just brown. I just love it in an arrangement like this. So if you do want to add a little bit of color, you can always spray paint it. And I prefer to do like a metallic spray paint if I am going to do that. But you can see how as I'm placing these stems in, I'm spacing them out. I'm not putting, like I'm not taking like 2 allium stems and just shoving them in one right next to the other. I'm trying to be very intentional about my placement. And not just like side by side, but also height. So you can see like how some of the stems I have standing up a little bit higher. And that's what we want, because if you shove them all down and they're all together, then they start to disappear. And you can't really see the blooms. It just kind of looks like one big like mush of flowers. And that is not for me. Again, probably going to go back to some more allium in a little bit, but I feel like for now, I'm going to stop there. So I think now is the time that I'm going to maybe come in and start plugging some of my cosmos. I am obsessed with cosmos. They're the easiest cut flower, annual to grow. I literally threw these seeds in the garden. I just threw them. And I've got about 100 plants out there that yield about over 1,000 stems of flowers a day. They are a cut flower, so the more you cut them, the more they keep blooming. And so, again, they're not meant to just be ornamental. They're meant to cut. You want to make sure that if you stop cutting them, and as soon as a plant starts going to seed, an annual like this, the plant's gonna start to die. So if you do want to keep it alive, even if you're not necessarily using the cut flowers for whatever reason, you do want to make sure that you're still cutting the spent blooms to encourage the plant to produce new blooms and to keep the plant alive. And I'm loving the color and the little bounce that these guys are adding to my arrangement. I wish I had a variety to give you, but all of the seeds that I threw in my garden this year were seeds that I collected from my plants at my last garden at the end of the season. And so, because they are all open pollinated, there is no one particular variety. They're kind of all hybrid mutts. But this burgundy color is just absolutely to die for. And it is a color of Cosmo that I will always, always, always want to have in my garden. I love that pop of that like deep rouge. And again, I'm not overthinking it. I'm just kind of cutting and plugging them in. And if I don't like where something is when I first put it in, if I don't like how it looks, then I just take it out and I move it around. Or I take it out completely and don't put it back in. So again, these are always workable. And there are no mistakes. You cannot screw this up. You can see how quickly I'm doing this. And I'm talking. Which means I'm not even really fully paying attention to what I'm doing. I think I want to do some hydrangeas more around the base or the mouth of the vase, like where I started with the Joe Pye weed. So I'm going to plug some of those in down there. So much Agostaki. This is probably my favorite perennial. I have it in so many varieties. It smells like heaven. It's got like a licorice kind of anisey smell to it. Its nickname is hummingbird mint because the hummingbirds go crazy for it, as do all of the pollinators. So the bees, the butterflies. It is definitely a garden favorite for everybody. And it dries beautifully. It's a great cut flower with a long vase life, even when it's not dried. And it comes in a lot of different colors, whereas a lot of the perennials in the mint family you're going to see primarily are only going to come in like shades of purple. The Agostaki comes in literally every shade: white, yellow, orange, peach, light pink, dark pink, purple, light purple, dark purple, blue. Like it's just, it really is my favorite perennial. And the smell is like truly, truly, truly intoxicating in my opinion. I'm going to keep some of these stems longer for like a little bit of drama. I've never, ever, ever made an arrangement in my entire life that I did not take out probably a quarter of the stems that I put in initially and move them around. It's all a part of the art form to me. And so perfectionism has, in my opinion, no place here. This is not for you if you are a perfectionist and will only hyper focus on not screwing up and creating something perfect. Because when you're working with nature, things that are, grown in nature, there is no such thing as perfect. And so when I am making an arrangement, like, I'm always honoring that. That's what I'm always thinking in the back of my mind. And that's why I think I've always preferred the more organic form when it comes to arranging. Because to me, it obviously more closely mirrors what we see out in nature or out in the garden. And so it's always felt a little bit odd to me to see, something taken from out there in its kind of organic, natural, wild form and then just stuffed tightly together. But everybody is different and everybody has their own preference. And it's just not mine. I'm liking this little pop of blue in here. And again, you're going to really be able to see now what I was kind of referring to when I was talking about, like, the importance of textural variety and how it really allows each of the different blooms to stand out more, as opposed to if you were just kind of going in and plugging in like all the same color or all the same bloom head form, size. This one doesn't want to go in. There we go. Love this. Love it, love it, love it. The variety here that I'm using is called Blue Boa. And it's huge in the garden. It's like 5 feet tall, the plant. Which is why these stems are so long. And this is kind of where I start to look for voids or open holes in the arrangement. And go in and plug to kind of fill those voids. Okay, I'm done. I hope you like it. It smells so good. Like I said, the majority of these, everything except for the cosmos really, but these you can press. The cosmos you can press and preserve that way. But everything else in here is already pretty much dried, if not at least partially. And you can keep this, if you just pluck out the cosmos, you can literally keep this all fall, all winter if you want. And it's gonna stay just like this. If you want for a little added layer of protection, you can buy a flower preserve spray that you can get on Amazon, or you can buy it at a craft store in the floral section, and that will hold it even better. But this you'll be good for the next couple months. Add some beautiful, beautiful color and some life to your house during the fall.